Michael Jackson, Inside the Rise, Fall, and Legacy of a Legend Part 1, The Birth of a Phenomenon. Gary, Indiana, 1958. A small industrial town where dreams seemed impossible. Yet in a cramped two-bedroom house on Jackson Street, something extraordinary was brewing. Michael Joseph Jackson entered the world as the eighth of 10 children, born into poverty but destined for greatness. His father Joe, a steel mill worker with frustrated musical ambitions, saw potential in his sons. He pushed them relentlessly, sometimes brutally, molding 5 boys into what would become the Jackson 5. Young Michael, barely 6 years old, possessed a voice that seemed impossible for his age. When he sang, adults stopped and stared. When he moved, the world forgot to breathe. By 1969, the family had clawed their way from Gary Streets to Motown Records' golden roster. Their first single, I Want You Back, exploded onto the charts, hitting #1 and announcing the arrival of something the music industry had never witnessed. Michael wasn't just the lead singer. He was the heartbeat, the soul, the magnetic force that made millions fall in love. His voice carried pain and joy simultaneously, a contradiction that felt achingly real. On stage, this child moved like a seasoned performer, spinning and sliding with supernatural grace. America watched in amazement as this young boy commanded audiences with the confidence of a veteran. Behind the sequins and smiles, however, childhood was slipping away. While other kids played baseball and rode bikes, Michael rehearsed until his feet bled. Joe's discipline was harsh, his methods questionable, but the results were undeniable. The Jackson 5 became a phenomenon, selling millions of records and appearing on every major television show. Michael's face became synonymous with joy, his smile iconic. But that smile masked a loneliness that would haunt him forever. He was becoming a star, but losing himself in the process. The 1980s belonged to Michael Jackson. After years of success with his brothers, he stepped into the solo spotlight and shattered every record imaginable. His album Off the Wall had proven he could stand alone, but nothing prepared the world for what came next. December 1982 marked the release of Thriller, an album that would redefine popular music forever. The numbers tell an incomplete story: 70 million copies sold worldwide, 7 top 10 singles, 8 Grammy Awards. But statistics cannot capture the cultural earthquake Michael created. He became more than a musician. He became a movement. The music video for Thriller wasn't just a promotional tool, it was a 14-minute cinematic masterpiece that transformed MTV and elevated music videos to an art form. Michael's red leather jacket became instantly iconic. His zombie dance became a global phenomenon. Suddenly, everyone wanted to moonwalk, to spin, to move like him. The Motown 25 performance where he debuted the moonwalk remains one of television's most watched moments. He glided backwards across the stage, defying physics and logic, and the audience erupted. That single performance cemented his status as the king of pop, a title he would carry for life. His influence transcended music. He broke racial barriers on MTV, forcing the network to play videos by black artists. He negotiated unprecedented contracts, gaining control over his masters and publishing rights. He became a shrewd businessman wrapped in a performer's skin. Fashion followed his lead, the single white glove, the military jackets, the fedora tilted just so. Children imitated his moves on playgrounds. Adults debated his genius in living rooms. Michael Jackson wasn't just famous, he was omnipresent, an inescapable force of nature. Yet even at this pinnacle, cracks were forming. The pressure of being perfect, of maintaining this impossible standard, was building. Success of that magnitude comes with a price, and Michael was beginning to pay it. His appearance started changing dramatically. His skin grew lighter, his nose thinner, his face almost unrecognizable from the young man who had moonwalked into history. He claimed vitiligo, a skin condition, explained the pigmentation change. Doctors would later confirm this diagnosis. But the public didn't believe him. Rumors swirled viciously. The tabloids, once his allies, turned predatory. They called him Wacko Jacko, a nickname that reduced a musical genius to a carnival curiosity. They reported on his hyperbaric oxygen chamber, his alleged attempts to buy the Elephant Man's bones, his increasingly reclusive lifestyle. Some stories were exaggerated. Some were completely fabricated. Michael's Neverland Ranch, intended as a private sanctuary, became evidence of his strangeness in the court of public opinion. He built amusement park rides and invited children to visit, wanting to reclaim the childhood he never had. To him, it was innocent. To a suspicious world, it looked suspicious. The first accusations of child molestation came in 1993, delivered by a 13-year-old boy and his father. The allegations were graphic and disturbing. Michael vehemently denied everything, calling it an extortion attempt. The case never went to trial. Instead, Michael settled for over $20 million, a decision that would haunt him forever. Settling, many believed, was an admission of guilt. His lawyers argued it was the practical choice, allowing him to avoid a lengthy trial that would destroy his career. But the damage was irreversible. Sponsors dropped him. Radio stations questioned whether to play his music. Parents who had once encouraged their children to idolize him now warned them away. Michael became radioactive, his name synonymous with scandal rather than genius. His music suffered too. Albums released during this period sold well but never reached Thriller heights. The magic felt tarnished, the joy replaced with something darker and more desperate. 2005 brought Michael Jackson's darkest hour. Another accusation, another child, another courtroom. This time, there would be no settlement. This time, Michael would fight. The trial became a global spectacle, broadcast into homes worldwide. Every day, Michael arrived at the Santa Maria courthouse looking increasingly fragile. His trademark style remained, sunglasses, armbands, umbrellas held by handlers, but the man underneath seemed to be disappearing. The prosecution painted a picture of a predator who used his fame to lure vulnerable children. They presented witnesses, played disturbing interviews, dissected every aspect of Michael's relationship with young boys. The defense countered with character witnesses, exposed the accuser's mother as an opportunist with a history of false claims, and dismantled the prosecution's timeline. 4 months, the world watched and judged. Fans gathered outside the courthouse, proclaiming his innocence. Critics demanded justice for the alleged victims. The media fed on every detail, turning tragedy into entertainment. Inside that courtroom, Michael Jackson faced the possibility of spending decades in prison. The charges were serious, multiple counts of child molestation and administering intoxicating agents. A conviction would mean the end of everything: his freedom, his career, his legacy. His health deteriorated visibly. He lost weight. His movements became slower, more pained. The pressure was crushing him physically and mentally. Friends worried he wouldn't survive the ordeal regardless of the verdict. When the jury finally returned after 7 days of deliberation, the tension was suffocating. June 13, 2005, the verdicts were read: not guilty. Not guilty. Not guilty on all 14 counts. Michael had been acquitted completely. He left the courthouse a free man legally, but the trial had destroyed him in ways that transcended legal judgment. His reputation was permanently scarred. Many still believed the accusations despite the acquittal. The king of pop had been dethroned in the eyes of millions. He fled to Bahrain, seeking refuge from the country that had first loved him, then vilified him. Michael Jackson spent his final years as a ghost of his former glory. Financial troubles plagued him despite his catalog's value. Neverland was foreclosed upon. His spending habits, extravagant and uncontrolled, had consumed his fortune. In 2009, he announced a comeback, This Is It, a series of 50 concerts at London's O2 Arena. Tickets sold out instantly, proving his drawing power remained intact. The world was ready to welcome him back, to remember the music rather than the scandals. But Michael's body was failing him. Years of prescription drug use, intended to manage pain and insomnia, had created a dangerous dependency. His rehearsals showed flashes of brilliance, but also revealed a man struggling physically. On June 25, 2009, his personal physician, Conrad Murray, administered a lethal dose of propofol, a powerful anesthetic meant for surgical use. Michael Jackson died in his rented mansion in Los Angeles. He was 50 years old. The world stopped. News spread instantly, crashing websites and overwhelming phone networks. Fans gathered spontaneously outside his homes, outside the Apollo Theater, in cities across the globe. People who had forgotten him, who had judged him, suddenly remembered why they loved him. His death triggered an unprecedented outpouring of grief and appreciation. Sales of his music skyrocketed. His videos flooded streaming platforms. A new generation discovered his genius without the baggage of scandal. The documentary footage from his This Is It rehearsals became a film, showing the world the perfectionist artist who lived for his craft. Today, Michael Jackson's legacy remains complicated and powerful. He sold over 400 million records worldwide. He revolutionized music videos, dance, and live performance. He broke racial barriers and inspired countless artists across every genre. Yet the accusations, the trials, the strangeness, they remain part of his story too. History will debate Michael Jackson forever. Was he a victim of his own fame? A misunderstood genius? Something darker? Perhaps he was all of these things simultaneously, a contradiction as complex as his music. What cannot be debated is his impact. When Billie Jean plays, people still move. When Man in the Mirror echoes, people still feel. The king of pop may be gone, but his throne remains occupied by memories of moonwalks, sequin gloves, and a voice that could make the world forget everything except the music.